Just dump all 9 kids on her. She doesn't do anything anyway. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just stood there in the hallway, the grocery bag digging into my wrist and the catering receipt fluttering slightly in my other hand. I had walked in through the side door like I always did. I didn't knock. I didn't want to interrupt. I thought I was being helpful. Their voices floated from the kitchen. Logan's tone was casual, almost amused. His wife Emily gave a little laugh in response, the kind people use when they fully agree but want to sound polite about it. "She's already paid for the food," Emily said. "The least she can do is keep the kids upstairs." I blinked. The receipt crinkled in my hand, and I realized I was squeezing it too tightly. The total, $1,963.75. I hadn't even told them I was covering it. I just wanted Christmas to go smoothly this year. I thought if I handled the meal, they'd be grateful. "You know she'll do it," Logan added. "She always does." I stepped back without making a sound. Slipped out through the same side door I'd come in, keys still in my coat pocket. My car was cold. I sat for a minute before turning it on. Not because I didn't know where to go, but because I didn't know where I stood anymore. He wasn't a cruel son. Not overtly. He still called once a week. Still hugged me when we met. But somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being a mother and started being the default, the one who always said yes. The engine clicked to life. I pulled out of their driveway without sending a text or leaving a note. If they noticed I'd come and gone, they didn't say. That night, I laid the receipt flat on my kitchen counter. And for the first time in a long time, I asked myself what I was actually giving and what was ever given back. I lay in bed that night, with the lights off the hallway dim and the words still playing on a loop in my head. Just dump all 9 kids on her. Over and over like a song I didn't ask to hear. I stared at the ceiling, and somewhere between midnight and morning, my memory wandered to every time I'd said yes. Logan's wife had a minor surgery once I took over school pickups, dinners, even laundry. When Maria, my daughter-in-law's sister, had her 3rd child, I babysat the other 2 for an entire weekend because no one else could handle them. No payment, no sleep, just expectations dressed up as family values. My younger son Dylan moved to Oregon 6 years ago. He's different, quieter, more careful with what he asks of me. But he's far away. And Logan stayed local, which slowly translated into available and eventually into responsible for everything. It crept up gradually, helping with birthdays, then holidays, then childcare, just until they got back. It never stopped. This year, I'd been promised rest. Logan said it after Thanksgiving, standing in my kitchen poking through the cranberry leftovers. "You've done enough, Mom. We'll take care of Christmas this year. Just show up and relax." I believed him. The following week, I prepaid for catering. It was supposed to be my gift. I didn't tell them. I just thought it might ease the load for everyone, make things simple. Let us all actually enjoy being together. That was the word I kept turning over in my head, together. But that sentence, that careless, clipped sentence, cut right through it. I wasn't invited to Christmas to rest. I was expected to fund it, feed it, and then remove myself from it while they celebrated downstairs. At 3 a.m., I got up and made a list on the back of an old receipt. Every year, I'd hosted every chore I'd picked up, every errand I'd run. And next to it, I left a blank space titled Received. I stared at the paper the next morning, the 2 uneven columns still sitting on the kitchen table. Given stretched, long, and messy. Received remained untouched. I thought maybe I was being petty. Maybe I'd taken Logan's comment out of context. But the more I sat with it, the more the old memories started lining up, not just in my head, but in my chest. Last Thanksgiving, the house was full. I'd arrived early to help cook, stayed late to clean. That night, Logan's in-laws got the guest room, and I was offered the pull-out sofa in the basement. No pillow, no sheet. Just a blanket draped over the arm. Emily had said, "Oh shoot, we meant to set you up better," and that was the end of it. Mother's Day came and went without a call, not even a text from either of my sons. I'd sat on the patio for hours with my phone on the table, trying to convince myself it was just the time zones or busy schedules. Dylan messaged the next day. Logan didn't message at all. And the wedding, Logan and Emily's. I'd ironed his shirt that morning, tied the ribbon on the centerpieces. But when the photos came out, I wasn't in a single one. Not the family portraits, not the cake cutting. Just a few blurry, candid shots from the back of the room. When I asked about it, Logan said, "Oh, you must have stepped out." The photographer was rushing. I had stepped out to clean spilled wine off the floor while everyone else gathered for the formal shots. This year was supposed to be different. Logan had said so himself. "You'll get to relax this time, Mom. We've got it covered." And I wanted so badly to believe him. I did believe him. I looked down at the paper again. Received was still empty. I picked up the pen and drew a single dash. Then I turned the page over and started a new list, just 2 titles. What they assume and what I actually want. On the left, what they assume. On the right, what I actually want. They assume I don't mind babysitting. They assume I don't need rest. They assume my time is always available. They assume I'll pay because I can. And on the right side, I finally wrote what I'd never said out loud. I want to be invited, not assigned. I want to enjoy, not host. I want to sit at the table, not serve it. I want to be seen as a person, not a resource. I stared at the list for a long time. Then I turned back a few pages and saw a note I'd scribbled in September. Nadine called, asked again if I'd consider coming out to the ranch this year. I'd written a quick response underneath it. Can't. Family comes first. I read that sentence twice. Then once more. Nadine had called me in the middle of a Saturday when Maria had just dropped off her kids without warning again. Nadine had laughed and said, "Come to the desert for Christmas, Renee. We'll drink wine by the fire and let the younger ones do the work for once." I'd smiled at the time and told her I was already spoken for. But now I pulled out my phone, found her name in my contacts, and hovered my thumb over the call button as the sun shifted across my floor. The next morning, I called the catering company. The woman on the line recognized my name right away. "Oh, Mrs. Marlowe, the order for the 25th was there an issue." Her voice was careful, polite. I told her I needed to cancel everything. There was a pause, the sound of keyboard clicks. "We can process a partial refund," she said. "You'll receive about $1,040 back after the deposit." I thanked her and hung up before I could change my mind. It felt strange, lighter somehow, like unclenching a fist I hadn't realized was tight for years. Afterward, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled out a single sheet of paper. The words came quickly. "No one else gets to define your worth." I folded the paper, slid it into an envelope, wrote my own address, and dropped it into the outgoing mail. A note from myself to myself, proof that I was finally listening. My phone buzzed twice that afternoon, Logan's name flashing on the screen. Then again, an hour later. No voicemail. Just calls back to back as if he already knew something was off. I didn't pick up. The silence between each ring felt like its own kind of conversation. By evening, I was pulling a small suitcase from the closet. Not the big one I used for trips back east. Just enough space for jeans, a sweater, my old travel mug, and the paperback I'd never finished. I booked a room at a motel just past Las Cruces for the 23rd, halfway to Nadine's ranch. As I packed, I thought about how many times I'd driven that route for other people, weddings, birthdays, emergencies, but never for myself. The idea of leaving quietly without announcement or explanation felt almost holy. When I zipped the suitcase shut, the sound startled me in the stillness of the room. It didn't sound like escape. It sounded like permission. That night, I slept through without waking once. And when morning came, I didn't make coffee or check messages. I just took the suitcase by the handle and walked toward the door. The highway opened wide before me, empty, in that winter, quiet way that feels like freedom and distance at once. I passed the edge of Tucson just after sunrise, the light catching on the hood of my car, as if the day itself wanted me to keep going. I didn't play music, I didn't call anyone. I just drove. Somewhere past Deming, I powered off my phone completely. No silent mode, no vibration tucked in the glove box. Just off. I didn't want to know if Logan had called again. I didn't want to know if Emily had texted something passive-aggressive or performatively sweet. I wasn't in the mood to decipher anyone else's expectations. I just wanted peace. For a long stretch, I thought about nothing at all. Then, as the landscape settled into long, flat stretches of tan and rust, a memory surfaced. Logan at 8, carrying a chipped mug into my bedroom on a Sunday morning. He'd poured tea himself, lukewarm, mostly water with too much honey, and he'd whispered, "Careful, it's hot." He'd been so proud. I remember thanking him, pulling him under the blanket beside me, letting him fall back asleep against my side. That boy felt like someone I used to know. Somewhere along the way, his warmth turned into assumption. He stopped asking and started handing me obligations wrapped in politeness. But when exactly? When did I stop being someone he looked up to and become someone he leaned on without ever looking back? I kept wondering if he'd changed, or if I'd just never noticed how early the pattern had started. Maybe it was always there, soft comments that I brushed off, choices I let slide because I thought love meant flexibility. I still loved him. That hadn't changed. But I was beginning to understand that love doesn't require you to offer yourself up like a spare tire every time someone else gets stuck. By the time I crossed into New Mexico, the sky had gone a pale, brilliant gold. I had 4 more hours to go. Nadine had texted the cabin address the night before. I didn't need directions anymore. I just needed to arrive. We sat on Nadine's porch, the sun warming the wood under our feet. Coffee in our hands, no schedule pressing in. Her neighbors had wandered over, bringing cinnamon rolls and a deck of cards. Someone turned on a small radio that played softly from the windowsill behind us. It didn't feel like Christmas Eve, not in the usual sense. No scramble, no matching pajamas, no kids underfoot. It felt breathable. Then my phone buzzed. It was face down on the side table. I already knew who it was before I turned it over. Logan. The name filled the screen. Again. The last missed call had been 3 days ago before I powered everything off. I waited. 3 full rings. Then I picked up. "Where are you?" His voice was clipped, already halfway to angry. I sipped my coffee before answering. "Not at home. Not with you." There was silence. "I know about the plan," I said. "I was standing in the hallway when you told Emily to dump the kids on me. I heard every word. He started to say something, some defense, some excuse, but I kept going. You didn't ask me. You didn't include me. You assigned me, like I was part of the furniture. You planned Christmas without me, and only remembered I existed when you needed someone to fund it and carry it." Another pause. Then quieter. "You're still coming, right? You're just upset." "No, Logan, I'm not coming. I canceled the delivery. The food, the gifts, all of it. I never told you, but I paid for it. And now I've taken it back." "Mom, you're being dramatic. I'm being honest." "There's a difference." I could hear voices in the background. Emily, maybe Maria. Someone asking, "Is she on her way?" "No." I said, "Not to them. Not to him, but to the idea that I'd ever show up the way they expected again. I'm not." Then I ended the call, powered the phone off, laid it beside my cup. Nadine didn't ask what happened. She just passed me another cinnamon roll, and we sat there as the quiet wrapped around us like something earned. Christmas morning came quiet and unhurried. No alarms. No children tugging at sleeves. No oven timer yelling from another room. Just the soft creak of floorboards and the smell of broth simmering in the kitchen. I padded in barefoot and found Nadine already at the stove humming. She handed me a spoon without asking, and I stirred the pozole while she chopped cabbage and lime. No instructions, no pressure, just space. A kind of ease I hadn't felt in years. By mid-morning, more neighbors and friends began to arrive carrying bowls, blankets, and folded paper crowns. Someone brought tamales wrapped in foil. Someone else opened a bottle of cider and passed it around like communion. We weren't performing Christmas here. We were simply living it. I helped set the long table on the back porch, 12 chairs, mismatched plates, a few sprigs of eucalyptus someone had clipped from their garden. Nadine gestured to the end seat. "That one's yours." She said not out of obligation, but warmth. There was no job waiting for me. No stack of dishes in the sink, no kids to corral, just a chair. People told stories about bad dates and failed cookies, and the one Christmas, a turkey exploded in someone's oven. They laughed and passed cornbread and asked me where I was from and how I knew Nadine. No one looked past me to check a timer. No one asked what I could help with next. I hadn't realized how long it had been since I'd sat at a table without a role. Not the planner, not the backup. Not the one who stayed late to sweep crumbs no one else noticed. Here I was, just Irene. And that was enough. After lunch, someone started a card game, and someone else brought out folding chairs. The sun was still high, and the breeze had softened. I sat on the porch rail sipping cider, feeling full but not overstuffed for once, a different kind of full. And that's when the thought came simple and quiet. I don't have to go back to how things were. It was the morning of the 29th when they came. I'd been unpacking laundry, folding it slower than usual, letting the silence settle back in. The knock was sharp, fast, and full of purpose. Not polite, not tentative. I already knew who it was. Logan stood at the front of the group, jaw tight. Emily right behind him, arms crossed. And next to her, Maria, her expression pinched, like she was holding in words she'd already rehearsed. I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside and let them walk in. They didn't ask permission. "You embarrassed us," Emily said first. No hello. The food never showed up. People asked questions. Maria chimed in next. "Do you know how much we had to scramble? Rick and I ran to 3 different stores." "You ruined Christmas," Logan added, like he was stating a fact, not an opinion. I stood near the counter, arms resting on the edge. I waited. Let the words pile up like wet laundry. When the silence finally opened for me, I spoke quietly. I didn't ruin anything. I just stepped out of a role I never agreed to play. Logan blinked. "What does that even mean?" "It means I'm not your staff. I'm not the free babysitter, the invisible cook, the one who quietly fixes everything behind the scenes. I'm your mother, not your employee." Maria scoffed. "So you punish everyone because you were tired?" "No," I said, looking straight at her. "I chose not to be used. That's not punishment. That's protection." None of them spoke after that. Emily looked like she was waiting for me to back down. Logan looked confused, like something familiar had slipped out of reach. Maria kept shaking her head like I was being unreasonable. I stepped toward the door and opened it. "If you came for an apology, you're not getting one." They hesitated, like maybe they thought I'd change my mind. I didn't. They stepped out. I closed the door behind them slowly, without slamming it, and locked it with a quiet click. Then I turned toward the window and let the stillness return. It's been 2 months. The holidays passed without fanfare, and January slipped by like a quiet breath. I didn't send a New Year's card. No one sent one to me. Most Saturdays now, I walk to the public library. There's a reading nook by the southwest window that gets the best light in the afternoon. I bring a thermos of coffee and whatever book I've pulled from the new arrivals shelf. Sometimes I finish them. Sometimes I just sit, letting the quiet wrap around me like a soft shawl no one else is tugging at. On Thursdays, I volunteer for a few hours at the clinic down the road. Just front desk work. Clipboards, check-ins, warm greetings for strangers who don't expect anything more. It feels simple, useful, but never heavy. I haven't blocked Logan's number. He called twice in January, both times late at night. No voicemail, just missed calls. I didn't call back, but I didn't delete him either. It's not about punishment. I'm not angry anymore. I just don't need to chase him. I think he's still waiting for the version of me who dropped everything when someone else forgot. The version who absorbed chaos without flinching. The one who handed over time like it cost nothing. But she's not here right now. I cook when I feel like it. I keep flowers in the house even if they don't last long. I say no when I mean no. And yes when it's real. No one texts me asking for weekend help anymore. The silence used to feel like exile. Now it feels like a room I finally have the key to. Sometimes I still catch myself reaching for my phone out of habit, wondering if I've missed something important. But most of the time, I don't. Most of the time, I sit back in my chair, exhale, and feel the shape of my life settling into something that belongs to me again. Not borrowed, not expected, just mine.